We are so happy to be here and bonjour mesdames et messieurs, bonjour les amis, bonjour les fidèles lecteurs du Monde. Oui, on a beaucoup de chance de commencer ce dimanche ensemble et avec un personnage qui est vraiment hors du commun, qui est vraiment, vous l'avez lu sans doute, c'est un caractère, c'est une voix très forte, ce sont des convictions très sincères et c'est un engagement viscéral de toujours pour la cause des femmes. Son nom, quelquefois, n'est pas totalement connu peut-être des plus jeunes. Il n'empêche que tous et toutes ici, vous connaissez le nom d'une de ses œuvres majeures qui a fait le tour du monde, qui a une histoire incroyable qu'elle va nous raconter. Ce sont les monologues du vagin. Je voudrais qu'on commence par là parce qu'il y a beaucoup de choses à lui poser sur la situation des femmes, le féminisme, MeToo, tremble affreux, on peut le dire. Et on va parler de tout ça, mais quand même, je voudrais qu'on se replonge presque 23 ans en arrière, lorsque vous avez eu l'audace, le culot, de proposer une pièce qui s'appelait et qui utilisait ce mot scandaleux, sulfureux, épouvantable, imprononçable, mais que vous avez imposé sur les affiches, les monologues du vagin. Alors Eve, please tell us about this whole story, not so many details of course, but it was an épopée, and we'd like to know how it came and what did you do?
Bonjour, je suis très heureuse bien ici ce matin avec Annick Cojean, que I admire so much. And thank you all so much for coming out on the Sunday morning. J'espère que parler en français, mais j'espère la prochaine fois, ne pas m'attendre. It's so funny you were talking about vaginas and how it started. And I was saying to Annick that I pray every year the play will become outdated, that we won't need it anymore, you know, that we will actually be able to say vagina everywhere without it being an uproar. I often joke you can put Scud missiles on the front page of a newspaper, or you can put, you know, plutonium or nuclear war, but if you say vagin, people go insane. And I think, you know, it really started out of curiosity. I was talking to a friend, an older woman who's a feminist, and she was going through menopause, and she was talking about her vagina, and she was saying that it was dried up and finished and disgusting, and I was like, wow. And I was kind of shocked. And then I realized I didn't know what women thought about their vaginas. So I would just say to a friend, well, what do you think about your vagina? And the first woman I asked, she said, oh, my mother used to say, don't wear underpants underneath your pajamas. You need to air out your pussycat. And I went, oh, my God. And then every woman would say, well, you should talk to my friend because she has an amazing story about her vagina. And before I knew it, I was kind of sucked down the vagina trail. And I haven't gotten off it for 25 years. But I think what really shocked me was, first of all, how many women had never seen their vaginas, had never had orgasms, and how many women had experienced humiliation and violence. And it was really interviewing a woman in her 70s who had had an experience when she was a child, a young woman, where she had been humiliated sexually and she had never had sex again. And that is the reason I decided to write the play, because I suddenly went, no, this is outrageous. This is outrageous. We have to tell these stories.
So, vous avez immédiatement écrit une pièce, ça vous a pris quelque temps tout de même, vous avez commencé à la jouer, elle a d'abord été jouée je crois dans les lofts new-yorkais, et puis ensuite vous l'avez jouée vous-même dans un petit théâtre de New York, et là j'ai même lu que le premier soir c'était tellement fou que vous aviez même peur d'être tué. C'est à ce point-là.
No, well, people always say to me, did you ever expect the success? And I always say, no, I was just hoping someone wouldn't shoot me, you know? But I will say what was amazing about it was from the first time I performed it, people went crazy. And literally after every show, women would line up to tell me their stories, And stories they had never told anyone before. Stories about rape, stories about pleasure, stories about the desire for pleasure, stories about incest. And I was shocked. Like, of course, I knew there was violence against women because I was sexually abused and beaten by my own father. But I had no idea the scope. I had no idea how many women in this world have been, continue to be, and we really should take a moment this morning, I think, really just to pause and think about the 114 women in France who have already been murdered this year by their husbands. I just want to take a moment to just take them in and remember them and think about them, because it's 25 years later and it's still going on.
On a parlé tout à l'heure d'ailleurs, on parlait des féminicides et des images si fortes, je ne sais pas si vous les avez vues hier, ce matin, elles ont beaucoup circulé, heureusement d'ailleurs, sur Twitter, sur Facebook, et Ève les a vues, cette marche des Femmes hier dans le cimetière Montparnasse, qui était absolument effarante et qui était glaçante. Et c'est 114 femmes qui marchaient comme des fantômes dans le cimetière, portant le nom et l'image parfois d'une femme tuée en France depuis le début de l'année. Alors on en reparlera tout à l'heure, Ève, mais ces histoires que vous ont confiées, toutes ces femmes qui venaient vous voir à la fin du théâtre, qui était tout petit théâtre au départ, puis ça a été joué, rejoué, vous avez le soutien d'actrices très célèbres qui tout de suite ont voulu quand même manifester leur solidarité, sympathie, empathie avec votre travail. Alors les Jane Fonda, les Meryl Streep, les Suzanne Sarandon, etc., mais aussi en France, Gisèle Halimi, Sonia Rykiel au départ. Là, je parle de temps que les moins de 20 ans, mais tout de même, enfin, c'était il y a 23 ans, c'est quand même pas si vieux. Mais malgré tout, il y a tout de suite eu un soutien quand même des femmes. Et est-ce que les médias vous ont suivi? Est-ce qu'au départ, on a parlé de cette pièce? Est-ce qu'on a compris que ça devenait un phénomène ou pas? Je voyais que CNN, toujours pour revenir sur ce mot vagin, mais CNN avait fait un reportage sur les monologues du vagin sans prononcer le mot vagin. Et je lisais aussi que CBS en parlait régulièrement parce que ça devenait de plus en plus important et pouvait dire vagin en semaine, mais pas le dimanche.
Yeah. Well, actually, in television in the United States, you could say penis, but you couldn't say vagina. And when the CNN did that piece, they did a 10-minute piece on the vagina monologues and never mentioned the word vagina, which was quite astounding. But I'll tell you something, you know, Paris was one of the very last places to agree to do the play, which totally shocked me. Greece did it before, Croatia did it before, and they actually, the original people who produced it asked me to change the name. And I refused. I said, what am I going to call it? The pocketbook monologues? And then people will come into the theater and it'll be like, gotcha. You know, I mean, obviously the name was intentional. You know, you were making a choice to come to a play that was about vaginas, which was a political choice. But I will tell you, there has never been a city, a country that the play or I have ever gone to that welcomed vaginas with open arms. Do you know? It's always been feared. It's always been resisted at the beginning, and then once it's there for a little while, it completely changes.
What happened so? Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé dans le reste du monde? Comment tout d'un coup c'est devenu, peut-être pas tout d'un coup d'ailleurs, peut-être que ça a pris du temps, mais enfin qu'est-ce qui a expliqué tous les voyages que vous avez faits pour accompagner votre pièce absolument partout? Vous avez pris des trains, des bateaux, des avions, vous avez voyagé en jeep pour aller accompagner la pièce dans des villages, vous êtes allé au Vietnam, vous êtes allé à Islamabad. Racontez-nous peut-être quelques moments clés très forts de l'impact de cette pièce qui était quand même étonnante.
Well, if you had told me as a younger woman that the vagina monologues was going to be the piece that really brought me into the world, I would have laughed at you because it would have been the most unlikely thing. But I think what it unleashed or what it uncorked was the truth that was going on inside women everywhere. And I can close my eyes in any country, whether I'm in Islamabad or in Manila or in, Bosnia, or people laugh at the same places, people cry at the same places. The stories are sadly and wonderfully universal. And I think, you know, I'll tell you a wonderful story that the first time it was performed in Pakistan, I had been in Afghanistan. It was, we were working with women who were going through enormous suffering and violence under the Taliban. And we came to Islamabad with the women from Afghanistan to watch the women of Pakistan perform it in an underground production. And there was a curtain that the men sat behind, and then the women sat, you know, in front of it. And the performers were absolutely brilliant and stunningly beautiful and just so good. And I just remember at a certain point looking around, and women were laughing so hard their chadors were falling off. And I looked at the women from Afghanistan, because there was a piece about women in Afghanistan, and they were weeping, and the women in Pakistan were weeping. And it was just this amazing moment where you see what theater can do, what art can do, that it can bring people together in ways one can't even imagine. And I think what I've really learned is that there is this universal language, particularly between women, that crosses borders. There are no borders. There are no nation states for women. We are a world of women, and I looked at that incredibly beautiful demonstration yesterday in Montparnasse. It was so stunning, and I put it on my Instagram, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women responded to it all around the world, because it doesn't matter if we're in France or if we're in Spain or if we're in Congo or if we're in South Africa. Right now, femicide is everywhere, you know, and women are leading movements everywhere, right, with artistic and brilliant and radical and creative expressions, you know. And so I think that's what the play taught me, that we're borderless, you know, women.
Racontez-nous peut-être encore deux ou trois épisodes qui vous viennent, qui ont été emblématiques peut-être de l'impact de cette pièce, les mouvements, les monologues de vagin. Je sais qu'en Turquie, il y a eu des moments fous et des femmes ont été arrêtées pour jouer cette pièce. C'est quand même dingue de penser à ça. Je crois qu'elle a été jouée au Parlement européen, elle a été jouée dans une banque à Londres, elle a été jouée l'année dernière ici, lue par 3 ministres, ministres actuels et anciens ministres, 3 femmes qui étaient sur scène également, Marlène Schiappa notamment. Elle a été jouée quelquefois dans des circonstances plaisantes, extravagantes, dramatiques. Est-ce que vous avez encore deux petits exemples qui vous ont frappé? Mostar peut-être aussi en...
I think Mostar was really amazing because it was after the war, and women performed it for refugees, for people who had returned. And when they did the Bosnia piece, it was so emotional that there was literally wailing. I mean, people were wailing, but it was also so cathartic and beautiful. In Manila, they performed the piece originally, and then they were invited to Congress to perform it. And there had been a law that they were trying to pass for 18 years on violence against women. And they were invited to perform it in the Congress. And a week after they performed it there, the law got passed, which was really quite astounding. And then in Michigan, there was a woman who was talking about abortion on the floor of the legislature, and she got censored and told she could not come back for saying the word vagina when talking about abortion. And so I called her and I said, well, I'm here to support you in any way. And we decided that we would perform the vagina monologues on the steps of the legislature in Michigan. And all of the women members of the legislature were in the production. And within 24 hours, 5,000 people showed up for that production. It was amazing on the steps of the legislature. So, I mean, it's been amazing to see too how, like last year, I think there were probably, every year in VDay, there are probably between 700 and 900 places that do the play to raise money for local groups, for their shelters, for their hotlines, and every year I am astounded to see the bravery of the places people are willing to bring it. Like, right now there's a lot of prisons doing the show, and women in prison performing the show. And, you know, I remember the first time I ever saw it done in Antarctica. I think there are 6 women in Antarctica, but I remember seeing a flag that said vaginas in Antarctica. And I think there's something about women spreading the vagina monologues, like from person to person, because it initially began in the big cities, and then it slowly, over the years, began to spread out into communities, into people's original languages. So if it started in English in the Philippines, it then went to Tagalog. If it started, you know, and I think once it gets into people's original language, it always gets much more dangerous. Yes. So it's just been a privilege and an honor to see the brave women and men who have brought it to their communities and are willing to put themselves on the line, like the woman in Turkey who got arrested. Yeah.
And also it gives a responsibility, I guess, because quand vous avez, je continue en français peut-être pour le public, mais quand vous avez accumulé tant d'expériences, tant de souvenirs, tant de confessions ou de récits, en tout cas de femmes qui n'avaient peut-être jamais parlé à personne, qui sont venues vous voir pour vous raconter, arriver avec leur fardeau d'histoires terribles et de douleurs, qu'est-ce que vous en faites? Voilà. Qu'est-ce que peut faire la dramaturge au-delà de donner un soutien? Alors vous avez un tout petit peu évoqué le VDay. Effectivement, ce serait bien d'en dire un mot parce que le nom n'est peut-être pas encore très très connu. VDay, V comme victory, vagina, of course, et violence, bien sûr. Mais vous avez créé le VDay parce qu'il y avait quelque chose à faire. Votre pièce était jouée partout, certes, mais comment peut-elle faire avancer? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire concrètement pour aider les femmes? Et vous êtes donc à la tête d'une organisation, d'une initiative qui a changé la vie, qui a en tout cas touché des millions, on disait 300 millions, peut-être encore plus de gens d'ailleurs maintenant. Parlez-nous un peu de cette initiative et de cette responsabilité que vous avez ressentie à un moment donné de concrètement, qu'est-ce que je peux faire?
Well, I think as I started to perform the play and women would come up to me to tell me their stories, you know, when someone offers you their story, it's a gift, but it's also a huge responsibility, particularly if women have been really badly abused. And after a certain amount of time, I was becoming overwhelmed and I was going to stop doing the show because I just said, I can't keep listening to this unless I do something. And so in 1998, we got a group of women together in my living room, and you know, I think all great movements begin in women's kitchens and living rooms. And I said, we have this play. What could we do with it to end violence against women, to end it? Not to keep imagining it is going to be part of the human condition and will be part of us forever, but that we could actually dismantle patriarchy at some point and move to another paradigm where women are actually free and safe and empowered. And as they said, as Femen said yesterday, like we could actually stop worrying about being murdered every day and get on with the business of protecting life. And I think what we decided is we would do one performance of the play in New York. We would ask all these wonderful actors who were well known to come, so we would get an audience, and then we would raise money and we would give it to existing groups that were doing frontline work. And that first performance in 1998 was really incredible. You know, I remember I asked Marissa Tomei first because she had seen the show, and she was very nervous. And I convinced her. And then once I had Marissa, I went to Glenn Close and I said, well, Marissa's doing it. Why don't you do it? And so eventually a whole group of incredible actors performed it. And it ended up being 2,500 people in this huge. And that night, it was so clear that some energy was just being born. And after that, it was like the seeds of that night just began to just kind of fly through the world. And one woman said, I want to bring this to college campuses. And another woman said, I want to make vagina pajamas. And another woman said, I want to bring this to Pakistan. And before we knew it, it was just spreading. And, you know, in those years, I mean, the college campaign, I remember the first year we were thrilled that 25 colleges were going to perform the Vagina Monologues, and they could do it for free, and whatever money they raised would go to their local groups. And then now I look and I see sometimes 800 colleges are doing it. So that's real change over these years, you know? And I think the movement has gone to many, many, many countries and allowed people to use the play to serve their communities. So if you're in a small town in Texas and you're having a problem with rape in your town, you can put on the play and draw attention and educate people and raise money to help that particular cause. And then about 7 years ago, it was our 15th year, what I feel about patriarchy, and I bet you have the same feeling, is that we're always in Groundhog's Day, you know, we're back where we started, over and over. And I sometimes feel like it's so insidious, it's so embedded, patriarchy, that it's like a virus, you know, when the conditions are right, it keeps coming back. But so 7 years ago, we decided we would escalate the campaign, and we started something called 1 Billion Rising, which is a dance campaign, an artistic campaign. And we put out the invitation to say, will you rise around the world? And the first year, 200 countries rose, millions of people. And now it's been going on 7 years. And the impact of that campaign has been absolutely amazing, because it has been taken up and owned by people all through Africa, all through South America, all through Europe, all through Asia and Northern Asia. You know, in Mongolia, in China, they're doing it underground. That's another story, that in China, the Vagina Monologues is really being done underground. And a wonderful woman, activist Lu Ping, told me that people do it in their living rooms, and they do it in, you know, in little cafes that people don't know about, and it's a way of women really coming together to talk about their stories. But I think one of the things that is very exciting and positive is to see how much women and men want change. But it's also so incredible to see how entrenched and how deep and sometimes how stubborn and persistent patriarchy is.
Juste concrètement, je voudrais que vous puissiez nous dire quand même ce que vous avez pu faire. On peut juste simplement imaginer, mais avec tout cet argent récolté par les petites associations auxquelles vous donnez gratuitement les droits de jouer la pièce, tout cet argent a servi à beaucoup de choses, à faire des refuges pour femmes battues, à faire des campagnes d'éducation au Pakistan, dans différents pays. Est-ce que concrètement, il s'est passé beaucoup de choses qui ont atteint des tas de populations? C'est la transformation des mots en un pouvoir extraordinaire, et là pour le coup en action sur le terrain.
Well, it's also because of extraordinary women who are doing the work, and I think it's vagina magic. That's the only way I can say it. Like, from the very beginning, there's been something so magical about this whole experience. But like today, for example, Christine Schuler de Screever is here from Bukavu, Congo, who's the director of City of Joy. Christine, where are you? Can you just raise your hand?
On voit
Yeah,
pas bien.
Yeah.
Oui, Christine. Ah, Christine au premier rang. Oui, cette femme est incroyable.
Yeah, no.
Elle va dire pourquoi, mais elle
No,
travaille.
she's incredible. One of my
Au Congo.
heroes of the world. But like, it's amazing that the vagina magic brought me to Christine, right? And I'll even tell that story
Racontez.
because it's so amazing.
Oui.
So I was invited by the UN, which never invites me rarely to do anything because the vagina and the V and the U don't often go together, you know. And I was invited to interview Dr. Denis Mukwege, who just won the Nobel Peace Prize last year. And this was long before anybody knew Dr. Denis Mukwege. And I wasn't going to interview him, A, because we were so involved in Haiti, in Afghanistan, in Bosnia, and the idea of taking on and thinking about Congo just seemed overwhelming. But then I read his resume, and it was incredible, and the work he was doing was so powerful. So I interviewed him and was completely struck by his devotion to the women of Congo, but appalled appalled by what was happening there. So he wanted me to meet Christine Schuler described her. But the reason Dr. Mukwege wanted to meet me, and this is what's so interesting about Vagina Magic, is that he was talking about, he's a gynecologist, and was talking about how the vaginas of women in the Congo were being desecrated and mutilated and ripped apart by the war, which, as most of you know, is an economic war being fought on the bodies of women, because the Congo is very rich in resources, and multinationals are pillaging the coltan, the copper, the gold, and the way they get into those villages is they send militias in, and they have the militias have the husbands rape their daughters, have sons rape their mothers, have the militias rape everybody, and then the families flee, the militias come in, they take over those towns, and they take over the mines. So when Dr. Mukwege was seeing all these women coming into his hospital, we're talking about thousands of women, he was talking about what was happening to their vaginas, and no one was listening. They thought he was insane. So when he met me, he was so happy I was willing to talk to him about vaginas. And he was like, you have to come to Congo and talk about vaginas because people will stop thinking I'm crazy. So that is what got me to come to the Congo and to meet Christine, who I then fell completely in love with because I looked at the incredible work she and Dr. Mukwege were doing. And then the three of us co-founded City of Joy and opened this amazing, amazing place that is healing and making revolutionaries out of women who come as victims and then become survivors and then become leaders. But really, it is the vagina that led me there. And in, I guess, 5 years ago, I was literally in Kinshasa when an extraordinary group of women performed the vagina monologues for many of the heads of the government in Kinshasa. And I sat there with my mouth open, right, witnessing that. And literally a few weeks later, I was in Haiti, where the women performed the vagina monologues in the Haitian Congress, and I remember this woman was dressed in an S&M outfit for one of the shows, and she had a whip, and she was literally going like this to the members of Congress with the whip, like, shh, and pulling their necks, you know, and so it's that, whatever that story is, it's led me, it's surprisingly been the thing that's brought me to sisters and brothers around the world in the same struggle.
Alors dans la Cité de la Joie de Christine justement et du docteur Mukwege, l'idée c'est quand même de transformer les victimes, de ne pas les considérer comme victimes, mais de les transformer en tout cas, de dire qu'elles se sont plutôt des survivantes, des rescapées, des survivantes, et des survivantes de faire des leaders, et des leaders qui vont transformer leur communauté, qui sont transformés, qui vont un pouvoir supplémentaire. On pourrait dire, vous aussi finalement, que vous êtes une survivante, vous avez survécu à beaucoup de choses, c'est vrai. On va dire plus récemment peut-être à un cancer contre lequel vous vous êtes battue. Et ça me frappait parce que vous avez écrit un livre aussi très très beau là-dessus, mais qui disait que au fond de vous, il y a la tumeur de l'utérus, c'était une pelote qui était peut-être faite de toutes les douleurs que vous aviez ressenties, que vous aviez vécues, mais aussi de tous ces récits de femmes qui étaient plus violents les uns que les autres et qui peut-être s'étaient transformés en quelque chose de plus insidieux et de très, très néfaste pour vous. Ça a été un combat dont vous êtes sortie gagnante et plus forte. Et puis je dirais, parce qu'on annonce un livre qui sortira au début de l'année, qui s'appelle « Le pardon », vous êtes aussi la survivante d'une enfance terrible et d'un père abusif, violent, dont, là encore, vous avez fait quelque chose. Et ce livre, alors je le dis, mais vous le lirez dans quelques mois, et je vous assure que c'est absolument incroyable. Mais si on en parle, c'est pas que pour parler de votre vie, parce que là encore, de ça, vous faites quelque chose et vous faites de l'activisme, parce que votre vie est une vie d'activiste. Vous écrivez la lettre ou le pardon que vous auriez aimé que votre père prononce à votre égard. Il est parti il y a 31 ans, et pourtant vous trouvez des mots, vous les imaginez, vous rentrez une sorte de connexion peut-être avec lui au-delà de la mort, et vous auriez voulu qu'il vous dise ça, qu'il reconnaisse certaines choses, qu'il explique. Et ça nous emmène, vous allez nous en parler bien sûr, mais ça nous emmène à une autre question sur Ces hommes qui font parfois, souvent, tant de mal. Une femme sur 3 est victime un jour ou l'autre d'une violence quelconque. Ça en fait plus d'1 milliard, dites-vous, et plus de 3 milliards peut-être dans le monde. Hein. On est nombreuses quand même. Il n'y a pas de pardon, il n'y a pas d'explication. Et même après MeToo, il n'y en a pas. Donc voilà, commençons peut-être par vous, et puis on va élargir le phénomène à une réflexion sur qu'est-ce qui se passe, quoi. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait de ça? On dit MeToo, mais moi aussi, mais qu'est-ce que ça change? Juste un mot, alors, sur, pas un mot, plusieurs, pardon, je parle trop lentement, mais sur votre propre pardon, ou le pardon que vous espériez, que vous n'avez pas eu, et que vous vous êtes décerné d'une certaine façon.
I think, you know, one of the reasons I wrote the apology is one, you know, I think I dreamed for years that my father, when he got older, would wake up and apologize for all the violence, abuse, violations. But that didn't happen. On the contrary, he just got more and more cantankerous and more bitter and mean the older he got. But I think all survivors yearn secretly for an apology, yearn. Whatever the abuse is, whether it's racial injustice, whether it's violence of any kind, there's this deep desire one day to hear someone say, what I did was wrong, and I actually did what I did. It happened. You're not a crazy person. I own what I did, you know? And so I think I waited for years for that to happen for my father. And then I've just been in this movement so long, you know, fighting to end the violence and thinking, you know, where are men in this story? Why aren't men with us in this story? Why aren't they by our sides in this story? And then watching this recent iteration of Me Too, where yes, some men have lost their jobs and a couple of men have gone to prison, but really, have we ever heard one public apology from a man detailing the account of what he's done, indicating he's done real self-interrogation to look at his own history, his own past, his own story, to understand why he did what he did, then feeling the pain of what his victim went through and understanding the long-term implications of that violence, and then taking responsibility for that violence in some really concrete, specific ways. And it occurred to me that maybe in 16,000 years of patriarchy, I have never heard of or read a man make a public apology. That is astounding. That is really astounding. And so I started to think there must be something very significant about apologies. Perhaps they are one of the columns of patriarchy. And I decided, I said, okay, well, we've done everything else, women. We've been fighting against violence against women, even though it's not our issue, ever. It turns out we don't rape ourselves or beat ourselves, but we'll fight that fight too. And I decided I'm going to write the letter to myself that I've always longed to hear. I'm going to write the apology. I'm going to write the words. I'm going to say to myself what I would need in order to be able to release that pain. And it was an amazing experience because I think in some ways I had to really allow my father, my perpetrator, who lives in me, who's always lived in me, because I think any woman or any person who's been violated by someone physically, they enter you, they stay in you, they live in you, and you're always in dialogue with them, fighting them off or disagreeing with them, or you know, 60 years I've been a victim to my father's perpetrator. And so as I was writing his voice and his words, I began to really feel his story and know his story. And I began to see what patriarchy had done to him, how it had robbed him of his humanity. How, for example, he was adored. And so many boys are adored. But adoration is not love. Adoration is a projection of an idealized image onto somebody that they are then kind of burdened to live up to for the rest of their lives, which means they can't be their real selves. They can't feel vulnerability or tenderness or cry or doubt or mystery or wonder. They have to be in charge. They have to be living up to this projected image. And I see how my father just had to push all his feelings underground until eventually there was actually another being that was created called Shadow Man, who really manifested himself when I was born. So the book really allowed me, and painfully so, to see my father's pain, which was incredibly painful, but it was also very, very liberating. But I also really began to understand the value of an apology, the anatomy of an apology, the alchemy of an apology, and how we have to start creating platforms and vehicles for men to begin to talk about the harms they've caused, what they've done, and how to reckon with those harms. Because the truth of the matter is, nobody walks around having done terrible things where it's not impacting their life in one way or the other. Either they're becoming more bitter, more violent, more depressed, more horrible, but it's poisoning them in some way. And I've been really heartened because the book came out in America in May. I've been so moved to see the response of men to this book.
What did they do?
They've been writing the most beautiful letters. They've been talking about their own desires to share things they've done in their lives that they're not proud of, to have a context in which to change, to be different kinds of men, to be freed from the tyranny of patriarchy, which has robbed them of their hearts, robbed them of their childhoods, robbed them of being able to just be human beings in the world and not dominators or, people who are always knowing the answer, always on top, or etc. And I've been interviewed by a lot of male journalists who have really opened their hearts and done some self-seeking in the middle of the interviews, which has been really quite moving.
Ça, c'est très intéressant parce qu'on se rend compte évidemment que le changement ne pourra venir qu'avec les hommes, évidemment, par une prise de conscience et un changement, mais au niveau le plus bas, enfin dans les écoles, tout débute l'éducation, c'est un grand changement, oui. C'est une révolution pour bouleverser le patriarcat, évidemment. Qu'est-ce que vous avez pensé globalement du mouvement MeToo et de son impact quand même? On a beaucoup dit qu'au moins ça avait libéré la parole, ça a permis d'entendre des choses qu'on n'avait jamais entendues, et le fait que les femmes puissent le dire ensemble, dire moi aussi, je suis concernée, a évidemment changé beaucoup de choses et leur a donné plus de force sans doute. Mais les conséquences, vous me disiez tout à l'heure que vous êtes encore assez, quoi on va dire, c'est pas critique, mais un peu sceptique sur la révolution enclenchée quand même.
Well, I think Me Too I think we have been involved in a struggle to end violence against women now. There's been a movement for 70 years, right? Beginning with African American women in America who were fighting off their white slave rapists, their slave owner rapists, right? I mean, Me Too is the next iteration of that, and it's the next generation of that. Women have been telling their stories for a very long time. Women have been breaking the silence for a very long time. So now the media has finally caught on in a bigger way, and great. I'm so glad the media has caught on after 70 years. It's fantastic. But I think it's obviously tremendous that more and more women are coming forward to tell their stories, and more women are crying out about harassment at the workplace. But the thing I'm very fully convinced of is that unless men change, none of this will mean much. I mean, I think right now there are quarters of men who are scared, who are being quiet, who are reserved, who aren't saying too much. But I see many men in America now slowly getting back their jobs. People who were accused of sexual assault, suddenly they're creeping back. And I haven't heard any of them come forward to talk about how they've changed. I haven't heard any of them come forward to say, wow, after I lost my job, I went into therapy, deep therapy for years, and I've been studying myself to understand how I could have ever done what I have done. Haven't heard one of those. So to me, unless that process begins to happen, unless we see men really doing deep soul searching and asking, and I'm not saying this in an attacking way, I think we are all prisoners of patriarchy. I think it's poisoned all of us. But women have been working on ourselves for many, many, many years, and we're the victims, to a large degree, of patriarchy. Men have really enjoyed the spoils of it, you know? And I think it would be very good if we could now begin to see men take a leading role in this movement, you know, to come forward to say, it's our time. It's our time to really, how are we going to bring up our boys differently? How are we going to teach? What does it mean to be a man in 2019? It's completely changed. What's the definition of masculinity? What's the definition of manhood? How are we bringing up our boys to not be people who could ever be having sex with a woman who is saying no and continue on having sex with her? Or how could we bring up our boys to know they could never strike a woman or hit a woman or threaten a woman? How are we going to do that? And that's the discourse that needs to happen now, because laws can legislate up to a point. But unless the culture changes, the laws don't have any impact. There are laws in many, many countries that don't get imposed or don't get utilized because the culture doesn't utilize them, because the culture is misogynist. So unless the culture changes, those laws won't change. Those laws won't be in operation.
Vous avez raison, mais pour un docteur Mukwege qui parle d'éducation, qui parle de ce que l'on dit aux jeunes garçons dès qu'ils sont tout petits, qui remarque que les mères, très souvent, nourrissent ou donnent de la nourriture en premier à leurs garçons, pour leur faire comprendre, mais c'est inconscient, leur faire comprendre qu'ils sont quelque part plus importants malgré tout. Donc pour un docteur Mukwege notamment, qui parle de masculinité toxique et qui s'interroge là-dessus, il y en a tant d'autres qui ne veulent pas du tout poser la question, sauf à se dire, maintenant on ne peut plus draguer tranquille, si on ne peut plus rien dire, c'est beaucoup ce qu'on entend. Vous avez la malchance, je dirais, d'être aux États-Unis gouverné par un homme qui précisément incarne la masculinité toxique. Mais non, j'imagine que vous n'avez pas voté pour lui, mais enfin, il a été élu et il sera peut-être réélu. Non, touche du bois. Mais tout de même...
Non.
Non, pardon. Non, soyons optimistes ce matin. Mais franchement, l'Amérique n'est pas aidée et les hommes, d'une certaine façon, ne sont pas aidés en Amérique, en ayant à leur tête ce prédateur suprême, comme vous dites, qui a lui-même été plusieurs fois, 20 fois, 22 fois, accusé d'agression sexuelle et viol,
25.
Et qui sont 25 fois, voilà, j'étais en retard, et qui s'en fout, et qui donne dans les médias l'image de la virilité triomphante en tenant par la main, en accrochant d'ailleurs de force la main de sa femme qui est comme un trophée. C'est un exemple terrible, non? Parlez-nous un peu de ce prédateur en chef.
Yes, I never used his name. I've called him the predator-in-chief since day one. You know, I think about 19 months before the predator was elected, I wrote a piece in The Guardian, and I said that he would be our reckoning in America. America, again, let's go back to apologies and reparations and atonement. America has a story, a huge history that has never been dealt with, beginning with the robbing of lands from the indigenous and the raping of indigenous women and the destroying indigenous with diseases and forcing them into schools where they had to give up to their traditions. And then that was followed by 400 years of slavery with African Americans and Jim Crow, all that period being a highly misogynist time in the country. And America has never reckoned with its history. I think the Civil War has been going on since the Civil War. It's just a cold Civil War. It's a quiet Civil War. What the predator ushered in was the truth of America. He just brought the whole truth up to the surface. And I think we are now reckoning with our past, with all the things that beg apologies, with all the things that beg reparations. He is the epitome, as far as I'm concerned, of neo-liberal, psychotic, capitalist, misogynistic, racist hate having reached its pinnacle, and idiocy on top of it, and incompetence, you know. No, I mean, these are just obvious things. I mean, you know, he's a person who, I don't even think he understands that he's broken the law because he doesn't even know what the laws are. That's how dumb he is, you know? Why else would he have released that report if he understood what the laws are? He's just arrogance, he's entitlement, he's narcissism to the point of it just kind of like a diabolical narcissism. He's discompassionate. The kind of things and policies he's creating are cruel beyond measure. You know, talking about alligators, you know, attacking poor migrants who are surviving countries where climate change has forced them into drought, and they're, you know, searching for a way of, I mean, the kind of things, I've spent a lot of time down at the borders to see the kind of treatment of migrants that is worse than anything one can possibly imagine. I really believe we're at a turning point in America. And if the best parts of us do not rise up right now, if the parts of us that refuse this kind of insane sexism and intolerable hatred of our earth, I mean, the kind of deregulations and what he's done to the planet, to water, to the skies, to the land, to all these oil companies where he's just allowed them to now drill and kill and frack and burn down trees, just like Bolsonaro and just like so many strongmen now across the planet. I mean, the planet is ruled by fascist strongmen. We all, as a world right now, I mean, Europe is frightening. If we look at all the fascist leaders in Europe right now, and the tyranny and the hatred of migrants, and we're at a turning point as human civilization. Our future is very much on the line. And if the scientists are right, we have probably 8 years to really begin to think about how we're going to reverse how we're living, what structure, what systems, what economic systems we're accepting and living in that can possibly even just put a dent in the climate catastrophe. So I feel right now that there are definitely emergent strains in the United States. We saw it recently in the climate march. We saw it in the women's march. We're seeing it in lots of uprisings here and there. And I think in the next few months, as we move towards the elections, it's going to be quite volatile. I think, you know, he's broken so many laws, it's even hard to count, you know, and the lawlessness now it's so astounding that, and he's the victim, which is always the case with perpetrators, right? My father, he was always the victim. After he would throw me against walls and beat my head and whip me, he would say, "Do you know how badly this makes me feel?" And I would be like, "No, actually, I'm the one bleeding." But it's the same thing with the predator. He's the victim. Everyone's against him. Everyone's doing him in. Everyone's out to get him. And part of what we all have to do is be very bold and very brave and very connected to what we know is the truth, and stand up and speak truth to power and get rid of these strong men and turn the world in another direction.
Merci beaucoup, Ève. Il y a beaucoup de choses qu'on pourrait encore aborder, évidemment. Il reste 8 minutes. Une petite question. J'interviewais il n'y a pas tellement longtemps Emma Thompson et une autre féministe égyptienne, d'ailleurs, Mona Altaoui, et qui disait que peut-être l'espoir, malgré tout, pour secouer, bouleverser complètement le patriarcat, allait venir aussi, pas seulement bien sûr, mais aussi des mouvements queer et des mouvements, toutes ces interrogations sur le genre et toute cette nouvelle mœurs d'une jeunesse dans laquelle la fluidité sexuelle est plus évidente. Et elle disait, l'une et l'autre d'ailleurs, que peut-être l'espoir était là, parce que mine de rien, ça a secoué complètement les images stéréotypées d'extrême féminité et une caricature de féminité, et aussi l'extrême virilité, cette virilité toxique que vous fustigez précisément. Est-ce que vous pensez que de ce côté-là, oui, il y a aussi de l'espoir?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think anyone who is destroying the binary and dissolving the binary is working against patriarchy. And I think this finally, this liberation of gender fluidity and gender self-definition and gender discovery is the greatest news on the planet. But I will also say that I think young girls are gonna be our way out. And we only have to look to Greta Thunberg and all these young, amazing activists who are around the world, indigenous young girls, African young girls, who are rising with such ferocity, such determination, such heart. And I've always believed deep in my heart it was going to be LGBTQ and young girls who really shifted the planet, because there is something about bravery, there is something about intensity, there is something about surety of purpose.
Yeah.
I was in New York and I was at an event with Greta, and I was just sitting there looking at her. And I was thinking, if I were the mother goddess of the planet, and I were going to send someone down, who would be the most unlikely person? This little girl from Sweden who has Asperger's. Send her down. There's a good idea. Send her down, because no one will ever believe it, right?
Yeah.
But sitting there listening to her, and then I was listening to so many other incredible young women activists, there's a kind of knowing that comes from something in your body where your future is being jeopardized, where you don't have anything you're going towards. And I think I have so much faith in this next generation that is being born into a world that is much freer in terms of gender, much freer in terms of their understanding of what is possible, and also raging at what we all have left them. And I think that combination is really powerful.
Merci beaucoup, Ève. Avant de finir, nous avons quelques minutes quand même pour quelques questions, s'il y en a dans la salle. 2, 3, il y a plusieurs mains qui se lèvent. Où sont les micros? Vous les avez? Ah, voilà. Micro vite. Ah, il y a quelqu'un là, mais il y a quelqu'un aussi à votre gauche. Oui, merci.
Hi. Thank you for coming and visit us in Paris. That's very nice. I have a question. Why didn't you write something like the monologue of the vulva instead of vagina? Because maybe we should get this word more popular too in the media, because it's, after all, the vagina is inside, and maybe the first thing we should discover is the vulva, the woman's vulva. And today there is a debate about that. Maybe other terms relating to the woman's body, like clitoris, for example. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Well, I'm an artist. I'm not a medical person. So vagina monologues seem like a catchier title than the vulva monologues. But I agree with you. I think vulva is the word, or yoni, or... And I think there's many words for it, but I think the vagina monologues does deal with the clitoris, and I think it does deal with all the aspects of it. And I think if I wrote it today, maybe I would call it the vulva monologues. Who knows? But at the time, vagina felt like a good title, and I'm not sure that many people would have rushed to see it if I called it the vulva monologues. Who knows? Who knows? But that was 20 some odd years ago. So somebody needs to write something about the vulva now.
La plume est libre, hein. Vous pouvez toujours écrire les monologues de la vulve. Autre question, rapidement. 4 minutes.
Thank you so much, first of all, because it's thanks to people like you that we can say vagina, 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 vagina without feeling dumb. So thank you. My question is, we can see movements of freedom and liberation of women all around the world, and LGBT people and minorities in general. Are you not afraid, I am, that the backlash that we were experimenting right now is going to break that down?
Oh, backlash.
Oh, well, I think we're in the middle of backlash. I think we're in the middle of it. I mean, I think this rise in strong men, this rise in fascists, this rise in... I mean, if you look at Duterte, if you look at Bolsonaro, if you look at Putin, if you look at Modi, if you look at Duterte, I mean... It's the same strain, right? Misogynist, xenophobic, hateful. To me, it's an indication of, believe it or not, that we are pushing forward. Do you know what I mean? That we are, because the pushback is stronger. And now what we have to do is push stronger, not retreat. Do you know? A person told me years ago that our job is to get the window open so far that you can put your body in it and it will never close again, right? And I think we are seeing an incredible pushback right now, an incredible pushback. But we are stronger than we've ever been. More women have come into a realization of their own power. This vagina is not going back in the bottle. And I don't know many vaginas that will go back in the bottle at this point. So rather than retreating at this point, we have to go forward, and we have to go forward with our energy, not their energy. We can't go forward with hate. We can't go forward with their vengeance and meanness. We have to go forward with fierce, radical love, just like those women in Montparnasse yesterday. That was, to me, emblematic of standing in your grace, standing in your power, standing in your rawness and your beauty and your openness, but also being really fierce about what the truth is. And that's what we all have to do right now. And, you know, I don't even think it's a question of if, it's a question of how. We are fighting literally for our lives to continue, human life to continue on this planet. We are that close to extinction. You know, I was reading a story yesterday about Siberia, where all the lands are collapsing because of climate change, and all the earth has just completely gotten soft because of the rains. And it was just talking about how much is dying off, and how all the agriculture is dying. And we're seeing this all over the earth, in pockets of the earth. It's happening. We're in the middle of the mass extinction. So we don't have a choice now, any of us. We have to put our luxuries, we have to put our ambition, we have to put our careers, we have to put our comforts aside, at least for the next 8 years, and fight with our lives for our lives on this planet. That is what is required. We have to wake up and come out of our slumber, and we have to understand that what is happening now is real, and it's going to affect every single person on this planet.
Autre question. Une dernière question. On n'a que quelques secondes. Vite. Est-ce que quelqu'un a le micro?
Oui.
Il n'y a plus qu'une question.
Oui, alors je voulais vous entendre parler un petit peu sur les nouveaux combats du féminisme. Moi, il y a un petit peu deux nouveaux combats qui m'interrogent et qui ne sont pas forcément enfin, voilà, j'aimerais avoir un peu votre avis là-dessus. Un courant, l'idée un petit peu par Virginie Despentes, sur justement la non-victimisation des femmes. Est-ce que vous le considérez comme un féminisme de bourgeois, de bourgeoise? Et un autre type de courant féminisme qui lui est beaucoup plus lié à l'écoféminisme et justement le féminisme, la femme proche de la nature et la femme justement actrice et symbolique de ce changement climatique. Voilà.
Je me demande si on n'a pas un petit peu répondu le ton tout à l'heure de la réponse d'Ève. Two kinds of feminism. There's one which considers, like Virginie Despentes, the author of Virginie Despentes, who considered that some kind of feminism used to be considered as a bourgeois feminism, or in the country of another one who is would be close to eco-feminism.
Well, seeing that, I don't know, all I can say for me is seeing that 1 out of 3 women on the planet are survivors of violence. I don't think looking at violence against women is a bourgeois thing, because there's not a country you can go into where women aren't struggling to overcome femicide, sex trafficking, violence in war, etc. And for me, I don't see any separation any longer between the fight to end violence against women's body and the fight to end violence against the body of the earth. I think they are exactly the same struggle. And I think the need of men and capitalism to dominate the earth and pillage the earth and extract from the earth and rape the earth and drill the earth and not even see the earth as a living entity that they are part of is exactly what happens to women's bodies. It's the objectification, it's the denigration, it's the erasure, and it's the seizing and taking what you want when you want it without any consideration of the future of that body or the planet. So for me, they are completely linked, and I think it's happening for many women around the world now that these ideas are linked, because women are life. Life comes through us, we give life, as does the earth, and how we treat both will determine whether we continue with life.
Merci beaucoup, je suis désolée. Je voudrais tellement...
Thank you all so much.
Impossible, time out, me dit-on. Donc je remercie beaucoup Ensler pour cette conversation trop courte mais passionnante, tonique, c'est le moins qu'on puisse dire, qui nous donne de la force et qui nous donne envie de continuer à lutter, bien sûr. Merci.